What a guy. I appreciate your principled stand and your leadership, Rand. I also know my friend Steve Shabbat is here somewhere. Steve Shabbat is one good principled member of Congress. Send him back so he can help us clean this mess in Washington, okay? Where is he? There he is. There he is. There you are, Steve. Hey, Steve. First off, I want to thank Burke Beyer and Beyer Steel. Thank you for hosting us this morning. Thank you for all the work that you have done to make this possible. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time, for coming out in the rain. Have a seat. Let's have a conversation, okay? You got seats? Let's use them. I got to start off on something that was really troubling that occurred last night. Did you guys watch that Packer game last night? I mean, give me a break. It is time to get the real refs. And you know what? It reminds me of President Obama and the economy. If you can't get it right, it's time to get out. Yeah. I half think that these refs work part-time for the Obama administration in the budget office. They see the national debt clock staring them in the face. They see a debt crisis, and they just ignore and pretend it didn't even happen. They're trying to pick the winners and losers, and they don't even do that very well. Look, we have a big choice to make. This is not an ordinary time. It's not an ordinary election. We're not simply choosing who's going to be the next president for 4 more years. We are choosing what kind of country is America going to be for a generation. That's the kind of choice we have in front of us. And I'll say this. We are here in a 4th-generation family business. We are here in a building that creates jobs, that promotes work, that struggles in a global economy. We are here in a place that is the embodiment of the American idea. Families passing businesses down, creating job security and workers. And here's the thing. The American system of freedom and free enterprise has done more to help the poor, more to produce opportunity and prosperity and job security than any other economic system ever designed. We don't want to replace it. We want to revitalize it. We want to revive it. We want to renew it. Let's never forget that. You know, when you take a look at the choice in front of us, it becomes pretty darn clear. The president inherited a difficult situation when he came into office. That's obvious. That's clear. The problem is he hasn't made things better. When he said, if we can just go borrow about $831 billion and spend it in Washington, mostly on special interest groups and cronies like Solyndra, they promised unemployment would never get above 8%. It's been above 8% for 43 months. We have 23 million Americans struggling to find work today. 15% of Americans are living in poverty today. That's the highest rate in a generation. We have problems, and they're getting worse. Here is what leaders are elected to do. If you see a problem, solve the problem. Don't blame other people. Get in there, use your principles, be honest with people about the problems facing this country, and do something about it. That is not the kind of leadership we've got right now. This is a time where the man and the moment meet so well. Mitt Romney is the kind of man whose life and his experiences show you this is a man who takes challenges, who fixes problems, a person of achievement, a person who turned around the Olympics when it was going down the tubes when his country asked him to, a person who is a successful businessman. And you know what? That is a good thing, by the way. Being successful in business, seeing success in society, we don't resent that. We don't envy that. We want more of that. That's a good thing in this country. He's the kind of man that when he was governor, this is a Republican governor of a very Democratic state. 87% of the legislators in his legislature were Democrats. Did he blame other people? Did he demean and demagogue Democrats? Did he point fingers? No. He fixed problems. He reached across the aisle. He got things done. He didn't compromise principle, and he ended up balancing the budget without ever raising taxes. The credit rating went up. Unemployment went down. Household income rose. Leadership. Most of our jobs in this country come from successful small businesses. Most of our jobs in this country come from businesses like this. 65% of our net new jobs, they don't come from the big, giant corporations. They come from these kinds of businesses. And when these businesses look at the climate today, look at the world today, what do they see? They see a federal government on a regulatory binge where they have no idea what the next regulation is going to cost them. They see a president guaranteeing that businesses like this have a big tax increase in January. They see an energy policy that is hostile toward American energy production. They see a borrowing and spending binge in Washington with no end in sight. They see a debased currency. They see the threat of higher interest rates. They see a future of doubt. And that is why we have this cloud over our economy. Our economy is not fundamentally flawed because the American people know how to grow the economy and create jobs. The leadership in Washington is fundamentally flawed, and when we fix the leadership in Washington, we can get this economy growing again. Now, I want to just walk you through a real big challenge, and then let's just have a conversation. Take a look at the chart over here. We got a nice LED screen. I hope everybody can see that. They're going to bring it on up for you. We've had debt in this country before. Take a look at the debt we've had in our past, going back to World War II. The big spike, the big sort of, looks like a mountain over on the left. That's the size of the national debt in World War II. It was as big as the size of our economy. For every dollar made and earned and produced in America, we borrowed as much to win that war, World War II. We sold treasury bonds, war bonds. Americans basically lent their money to their government to fight and win World War II. I look around here and I see some veterans. I can see it on your hats. Thank you for your service to our country. Thank you for what you've done for us. Thank you for the freedoms that we are here enjoying, and it's because of you that we have them. And what we've proven is that you can absorb a high amount of debt so long as it's temporary, so long as we know we're going to get it under control, that it's for a short term, that it's finite. Here is what our government, the Congressional Budget Office, is telling us our debt is in the future if we stay on the path that President Obama has kept us on, has put us on. This is the debt going forward. The debt goes as high as 2.5 times the size of our economy by the time my 3 kids are my age. You know, the reason why we end the chart here is they tell us they don't even think the economy can survive past that point because of the mountain of debt we have. Our job as people running to earn your vote, trying to deserve this victory, we want to show you we've got to deal with this. And what we are trying to do is show you how we're going to deal with it. The principles we will use, the policies we will put in place, and we will not duck this issue. Unlike the Seattle Seahawks last night, we want to deserve this victory. We want to earn this victory. We want a real victory because we want a mandate to fix this mess in Washington before it gets out of our control. I'm sorry, I'm a Packer fan. I had to get that one last one in there. But take a look at the nature of this debt. It's a whole lot different than it was in the old days. Because when you take a look at debt, say look back in 1970. 1970, our debt was $283 billion. 6% of our debt was owned by foreign governments, by foreigners. Meaning the other 94%, Americans, owned our debt. You know, we lent our money to our government to cash flow our debt. And the size of your debt is manageable so long as it's not too large per your income. It's just like a mortgage. You only buy enough house that you can afford to carry your mortgage. The same goes for governments. Well, look at 1990. Debt started creeping up, 2.4 trillion. 19% of our debt in 1990 was owned by other governments, by foreigners. Still, the majority of our debt owned by our own country. We were in control of it. Look at where we are right now. This is our public debt, the bonds that our government has to float just to cash flow our government, to pay for all these deficits. It's a future tax increase on our economy. It's a bill we're sending to our children and grandchildren. And right now, 48% of that debt is owned by other governments. China, number one. So what this means is we are borrowing all this money from other governments to cash flow our government. When you go down this path at this pace, we are losing our independence. We are losing our sovereignty. We are losing control of the situation. And once interest rates rise on us, we literally lose control of our own fiscal destiny and fiscal situation. We have a moral obligation to do something about this. We have a moral obligation to save the American dream for our children and our grandchildren and for ourselves. What's worse is where we're headed. This just tells you your share of the debt. This is the share of the national debt for every man, woman, and child in America. And, you know, Rand will agree with me, both parties got us into this mess. Let me just be the first to tell you, Republicans and Democrats were a party to the mess in Washington, and that is one of the reasons why we have the debt we have today. When January 2009, when President Obama was sworn into office, your share of the national debt was $36,000. It was a function of politicians from both political parties making lots of empty promises to voters for decades to get votes. Problem is, just like Europe is experiencing, when you have a debt crisis, those empty promises become broken promises. And our job is to prevent that from happening. But look at where the president has taken us. In less than 4 years, your share of the national debt has gone up by over $16,000. A 45% increase in every person's share of the debt. It's 51 grand right now. That's for every individual. If you break it down by taxpayer, it's a lot higher than that. The point is, if we don't tackle this problem pretty soon, it's going to tackle us. This is what Mitt Romney and I are committing to do. This is why we're putting these ideas on the table. This is why we're saying, here's how you reform Medicare. Here's how you reform Social Security. Here's how you cut wasteful Washington spending. Here's how you grow the economy and get people back to work so people are going from collecting an unemployment check to collecting a paycheck and paying taxes and growing the economy and getting revenues. Here's how you get America back on the right track. We have to tackle this problem. Now, let me open it up, but I just want to say this. If we don't turn this around pretty soon, it's going to be difficult to get the kind of country we've always known back. And if you think about what our country is and what it means, it's a wonderful story. It's a story that we often refer to as the American idea. That no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter how or under what circumstance you were born, you can make the most of your life. You can come from other countries, like the buyers came from Russia, or my family came from Ireland after the potatoes stopped growing, and you can make something of your life. It's what we call opportunity. It's a society of upward mobility. It's a society of growth. Unfortunately, that opportunity is slipping away from lots of people in this country. Unfortunately, we seem to be measuring compassion by how many people can be on assistance instead of measuring growth by how many people we get onto lives of self-sufficiency, into prosperity, into lives of opportunity, into jobs. The choice is really clear. We can either stick with 4 more years of the same, 4 more years of President Obama's country in debt, doubt, or decline, or we can have a real recovery. We can have real growth in this economy. We can get these problems under control. We can keep the promises that the government has made to our senior citizens, and we can prevent a debt crisis from ever taking this country down. Let's open it up. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a good old-fashioned town hall meeting. I've done over 550 town hall meetings throughout southern Wisconsin. It's a lot like this area. I went to Miami of Ohio. I know this area well. We have a lot in common. And I think you're hosting the Brewers. By the way, you guys are going to the playoffs. The Brewers still have a chance, so go easy on us, all right? I'm just going to go all the way around. So how about this lady right here, and then we'll just keep moving around. They'll bring a microphone to you, ma'am.
Thank you. My question is regarding how we are making an effort, particularly here in this area of Ohio, of reaching for Hispanics. I'm particularly from Mexico City. Now I'm fully Republican. I believe in the value of life, preborn, traditional marriage, religious freedom. Now, it took me a while to understand this. You know, coming from another country, you don't understand everything, the culture and its roots right away. But I came to this country because I was looking for prosperity, a place of safety to raise my family, just as you explained. And as I understand the culture and become adapted into it, I realized the roots of this prosperity are in that respect for that instructions that God himself gave us as to how to be prosperous. So how are we explaining this choice that the Hispanics have between making it clear that this is a distinction in the values? And, you know, I have contacted the Republicans and gone through the website. I have tried to volunteer to help in this, I think what is critical for this area to do. And nobody has responded to me.
Let me respond to you right now. First of all, thanks for being here. Thanks for bringing your energy and your talents. Thanks for raising your family. We are a nation of immigrants. We're all a product of it. We still believe in the manifest destiny. We still believe that we're that shiny city on the hill, that opportunity society. And so when we look at this issue or any other, I think what you said was very telling, which is, we call it assimilation, which is people come here for opportunity because they believe in the idea of America. And look, I can't top it. Thomas Jefferson said it the best in the Declaration of Independence. The idea is basically this: our rights come from nature and nature's God, not from government. That notion, that idea, produces liberty and freedom and free enterprise and opportunity and social mobility, upward mobility. So when you take a look at the damages caused by this very stagnant economy, those who've been hurt the most are Latinos, people in the minority communities. And so here's our message. We want opportunity for everybody. And for people fighting poverty, our goal, our job, is to attack the root causes of poverty, to break the cycle of poverty, not to simply treat the symptoms of poverty, because you end up perpetuating poverty. What we want to do is get people out of poverty onto lives of self-sufficiency. And by embracing those values that made us strong and great, liberty, freedom, free enterprise, self-determination, the things you talk about, like traditional marriage and family and entrepreneurship, these aren't values that are indicative to any one person or race or creed or color. These are American values. These are universal human values. And so what Mitt and I are offering is an agenda of prosperity for everybody to have a chance to climb the ladder and get out of poverty into lives of self-sufficiency. That's the whole point we're offering with this 5-point plan. On immigration itself, President Obama made all these grand promises when he ran in 2008. Lots of promises. You know, hope and change, which is now, I would say, attack and blame. But among the promises he made was that he was going to fix the broken immigration system. Remember, he came into office with total control of government. His party was in total control. I mean, that's why they passed Obamacare. That's why they passed Dodd-Frank and all these things, stimulus. But he didn't even try to fix the broken immigration system. That's one of the biggest broken promises. And as a result, we have an immigration system that's broken that doesn't work for anybody. We have problems on our southwest border. It's a frustrating process for legal immigrants to come here and enter the country legally. And when you have illegal immigration and a violation of the rule of law, it does a disservice to the people who work hard and play by the rules and come into the country legally. We need to respect them by having a system that works. And when we see the roots, or when we see the symptoms of a broken immigration system where people are falling through the cracks, we have children, of immigrants that are coming over, we have to acknowledge that the goal here should not be to treat the symptoms of a broken immigration system, but to fix the broken immigration system so that we have good legal immigration, so that people who are coming here can come here legally, that we have the rule of law, we deal with identity theft and our border security, and we deal with the labor force problems we have. America is that society of opportunity where no matter who you are or where you come from, you can make the most of your life. But we need free enterprise. We need economic growth. We need jobs. That's what we're talking about. And so if we get this turned around, if we get this right, we'll get back to being that great society we've had before. A society where you can make the most of your life and you can get opportunity. We want Buyer Steel to have an economy where they have more and more market share, more and more jobs. They can bring people back to work. They can get people going again. And that means whoever you are, whether you came here from Mexico or you grew up in the inner city of Cincinnati, that's what a growing economy does. Anybody over here? How about the guy right there?
Good morning, sir, and thank you very much for your service to our country. You're a patriot. And thank your family.
Pleasure, thank you.
We hear from the other side where you guys are presenting a solution on Medicare, and Medicare is really the driver of our debt. Your budget.house.gov is a great place where you can go to see that chart and see how bad it is. We hear the other side say that each senior is going to get like a $6,800 bill, and I would love a 3 or 4 sentence response to that that allows us to tell them, no, they don't have a solution, this is a solution.
3-word response: it's not true.
Thank you.
How's that for you? Look, even President Obama, in some rare moments of candor, will acknowledge that Medicare is on an unsustainable path. If you take a look at this pie chart, and I'll just describe it because maybe not everybody can see it, it's a ways away. Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security are what we call mandatory spending or entitlement programs. That and some other programs, plus interest, are on autopilot. By the year 2025, just 3 programs, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, plus interest, will consume 100% of all federal revenues. Every tax dollar will be used just to pay for those programs. That means no money for national defense, for education, for veterans benefits, for anything else. That's the path we are on right now. Now, the reason is because of demographics and really the cost of health care. And this has been a problem that's been building for many years. This is why I authored one of the first budgets to deal with this back in 2008, because it wasn't getting addressed. Put it this way, Medicare, like Social Security, is a pay-as-you-go program. I pay my FICA taxes for my mom's Medicare. My mom, 78 years old. Oops, sorry about that, Mom. She didn't really like it when I talked about her age. She's been on Medicare more than 10 years. She's a Florida senior. I pay my taxes. She gets her benefit. Here's the issue. We have a 100% increase in retirees coming with the baby boomers retiring, but only a 17% increase in the taxpayers coming into the workforce behind them. So you have basically a situation where 10,000 people are retiring in America each and every day, and they will be for the next 20 years, and far fewer people following them into the workforce to pay for their programs. More to the point, these programs that they use grow in cost by about 8% a year. Therein lies your problem. And so what President Obama has done about this, and you don't hear a lot about this, is when he passed Obamacare, don't forget, he rewrote Medicare as well. He changed that Medicare law in two very, very difficult ways, in two very harmful ways. First, he took $716 billion from the Medicare program to spend on Obamacare. He basically treats Medicare like a piggy bank to pay for Obamacare. The Medicare actuaries tell us that that will require about 1 out of 6 nursing homes and hospitals to just go out of business. But on top of that, what he did was he created this new board, a new board of 15 unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats that now are in charge of Medicare, and they're required to cut Medicare each and every year in ways that will lead to denied care for current seniors. That's his way of fixing this problem, which is put the program under the control of 15 people he appoints. The law doesn't even require that they have any medical training, and they have 6-year terms, and they're not answerable to anybody. If Congress doesn't like it, then Congress has to have a supermajority vote to replace it. And so what they're doing is they put this board over control, and they just twist the screws and lower payments to medical providers. What that means is, according to Medicare itself, is the people who provide medical care to seniors on Medicare will just get paid less than the cost of providing the care. That means they'll just stop providing the care. That's not a solution. But that's the president's idea of kind of a government one-size-fits-all command and control approach. Here's our solution. And here's the idea. If we don't like what he's done, which we don't, we owe you alternatives. That's what Mitt Romney and I are doing. We're putting ideas on the table on how you tackle these problems and how you fix this. Here's the alternative. I know I'm taking a little while to explain this, but you can help us clear the issue up. Because what President Obama is basically trying to do is confuse people to scare seniors into voting for him. It's the oldest trick in the book. Here's what we're proposing. For people who are 55 and above, if you are on Medicare or about to go on it, the government made these promises to you. You paid your payroll taxes all those years based upon this promise. You organized your retirement on this promise. And right now, given that we're still ahead of this debt crisis, we can keep that promise, so let's keep that promise. But you have to reform Medicare for my generation if you want to keep the promise for the current generation. Just wait. And so what we're saying is, our plan says, for people younger, 54 and below, you get a list of guaranteed coverage options that are comprehensive. You can't be denied. You picked your plan. Traditional Medicare is one of those choices you have. And then Medicare subsidizes your premiums based on who you are. Total coverage for the poor and the sick. Coverage equivalent to for middle-income taxpayers, what they get right now, and not as much for the wealthy. Doing it this way keeps choice and competition alive, puts the senior in charge of her own Medicare benefit, not 15 bureaucrats, and helps us save this system. It's like the system that Rand and I have as members of Congress as federal employees. It's a bipartisan plan that has bipartisan support in Congress. It came from the Clinton administration, and President Obama is standing in the way of this bipartisan compromise to fix this problem once and for all. Did you just ask the same one, Father? Or, oh, okay. Go ahead, Father, and then we'll go over here.
As a Roman Catholic priest, and Catholics in particular and religious people in general are worried about the erosion of religious liberty in this country, what can we expect from a Romney-Ryan ticket?
Look, I didn't set it. As you probably know, I'm a Catholic as well. And I've got some more Catholic. When I read this ruling, I was horrified. President Obama, through his imposition of Obamacare, through this rule from the Department of Health and Human Services, is requiring Catholic churches, charities, hospitals to violate their own conscience, their own tenets. This is the First Amendment to the Constitution. Religious liberty, freedom of conscience. This is the First Amendment to our Constitution. I will tell you this. This will not stand in a Mitt Romney administration. Mitt Romney will respect religious liberty, and we will void this right away. We should not have to sue our own government to protect our religious freedoms. That's what our church is doing right now. We will not do this. How about over here? How about the lady over here? Is there a mic? She's in the black shirt.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. As I'm an 18-year-old sophomore college student, and as many of my friends and I are trying to do, we're trying to go through college, get our education, whatnot. Some of us want to be teachers. I want to go into marketing. We basically want to be able to get an education to better our future, because we are the next generation coming up, and we want to be able to make a difference. The problem is, most of us are going to come out with at least $30,000 in debt. I know Obama has come up with a plan, but it's kind of so-so. What would a Romney-Ryan campaign, if elected, do for us college students so that we, when we graduate, aren't spending 20-plus years trying to pay off what we just spent 4 years trying for?
Kind of so-so. I think you're being charitable. It's a very good question. Look, like I said, I went to school, 45 minutes up Route 27, up Highway 27. And I student loans. I worked 3 jobs coming out of college to pay my loans. They were affordable. I went to Great Lakes, which is a place you get your loans from. Unfortunately, what President Obama has done is he had a government takeover of the entire student loan industry. Now, all those student loans are run through a bureaucracy at the Department of Education. It denies choice and competition in this industry. But more to the point, we went from about, I'm doing this off the top of my head, about $64 billion to $169 billion in federal government spending over the last decade on higher education. But what have we gotten for it? We're still slipping behind. College tuition has gone up 25% in the last 4 years alone. All this spending has actually increased tuition, because what happens is when the government pumps in all this extra money, it gets absorbed through higher tuition costs, and then you get stuck with a bigger bill at the end of the day. We need to go at the root cause of tuition inflation. It's not unlike healthcare. When the government inserts itself in such a way as it is, it ends up bringing up prices, and you pay the difference. We need transparency. We need competition. We need to know what things really cost so that those providing us benefits, whether it's a healthcare provider or a higher education provider, we should hold them accountable for performance based on price, based on value. We ought to be able to, as consumers, shop for things like higher education. So we've got a number of proposals that do that. But the last point I would make is, you're right. Here's the real solution. Because right now, half of college graduates coming out of school either do not work in the field in which they studied or aren't working at all. I mean, think about that. Half the kids coming out of college aren't even, employed in what they studied for or employed at all. There is no other better answer than we need economic opportunity, we need a growing economy, we need jobs so that you're coming into our workforce where you have ideas, you have opportunities, you can work, you can go into marketing, you can go into teaching. So number one, you need economic growth. The whole point of the Romney 5-point plan for a stronger middle class is to get this economy growing. Look, here in Ohio, you have lots of energy. You have coal, you have natural gas. Let's use that energy in this country and create jobs and create opportunities. That helps economic growth. That lowers prices of home. We believe in all of the above, nuclear, renewables, all of that. Number two, this is an area that I think is of critical concern, education. We have so many different federal government programs, we don't even measure whether they work or not. We have all these job training programs for people who are in between, people like my age, who lose their job at a factory that they had for 20 years, and they don't have another job to go to, and they don't have the skills to get another career. We have 46 different job training programs spread across about 12 different government agencies, and we really don't even measure whether they work or not. It's ridiculous. So what we want to do is consolidate those and give people the ability to go back and get skills at the 2-year, at the 4-year, whatever school, so they can get a job and skills for the 21st century. We think that's critical. That will help us get people the skills they need to get the jobs of tomorrow. We need to deal with regulations. We need to deal with taxes. We need to deal with this debt crisis, meaning we need comprehensive pro-growth policies that get the economy growing so that you have opportunities coming out of college. And we don't want a government takeover of our student loan industry. We don't want a government takeover of more spending, which ends up with more tuition. We want to deal with the root causes of tuition inflation so that when you borrow money to pay for school, you're not getting a 25% increase from the year you came in to the year you leave. That's unacceptable, and we're going to get on this problem because it really is a serious threat to our economy going forward. How about the gentleman right there in the yellow? Oh, 2 more, then I'll go back over here. Yeah, that gentleman right there.
First of all, thank you greatly for coming to Hamilton County. We need all the help we can get down here. Christine. My question has to do with the growth of government, limited government. It seems like once a program's added or a new department's added, you can't get rid of it. In fact, if we went back to 2005's budget, we would actually be budget neutral. We would be without a deficit right now. How do you propose to start cutting back on all of these layers and layers that have been added over the years so that we can get back to a smaller, more efficient government?
Cut spending. I mean, quite honestly. So President Obama gave us 4 budgets, each one of which had $1 trillion plus deficits. Never in any one of those budgets did the president ever propose to balance the budget. I mean, that's the... He runs all these ads talking about how he's just going to make a few people pay some more taxes as if it will fix our problem. You know, when he talks about raising taxes on, millionaires and billionaires, you think of, Aaron Rodgers, you think of the Wall Street guy or the movie star. The problem is it's a big tax increase on successful small businesses like this. Don't forget that 8 out of 10 of our businesses in America, they file their taxes as individuals, just like this company. Buyer Steel is what we call a sub-S corporation. They pay their taxes as individuals. President Obama is promising that this business will pay tax rates above 40% come January. Canada just lowered their taxes last January to 15% on all of their businesses. A company like this is an international competition. We are in global competition whether we like it or not. And so this tax increase, which will tax about 1 million small businesses, cost us 700,000 jobs, it's not even for deficit reduction. This particular tax increase only pays for 8% of the president's proposed deficit spending. If you add all the Obama tax increases that are coming into law, because he passed a lot of these, many of which hit middle-income taxpayers, another broken promise, it doesn't even pay for 1/5 of his deficit spending. So the problem is if you're digging a hole, stop digging. He's adding $11 trillion to our debt. He's giving us budget of deficits as far as the eye can see. They had a vote on his budget in the Senate. It went down 97-0. We had a vote on it in the House, 0 votes. We passed a budget in the House, Steve Chabot and I did, to fix this problem. We said to our constituents, we got a debt crisis coming. Washington can't keep spending money it doesn't have. We can't keep borrowing 36 cents on the dollar, half of which comes from other countries, and expect it to turn out well. So we put a plan on the table to fix it. Mitt Romney has put a plan on the table to fix it, and that plan means 3 things. Grow the economy. Don't keep taxing small businesses into losing jobs. Make them competitive. Clean the regulation system up. Get the economy growing. Number 2, cut wasteful spending. We're talking about cutting discretionary spending on government agencies, domestic agencies right away, because they got huge increases in the Obama administration. And number 3, you must reform these entitlement programs. These programs are going bankrupt. And the sooner you reform these programs, the faster we can guarantee their promise that they're making to people, and the faster we can prevent a debt crisis, and the sooner we can balance the budget. Economic growth, spending cuts, reforming entitlement programs. That's what you need to do to get government to live within its means. And all these different duplicative government programs, we need to consolidate all of this. We need to run through the government. Remember the president said he'd look at the budget line by line? That's what I do. That's literally what we do in the Budget Committee. We can fix this. And what I'm telling you is Mitt Romney has put more specifics, more details, more plans on the table than the current president of the United States on how to get this fiscal mess under control. if we don't tackle this debt crisis soon, we will wind up like Europe, where they're slashing health and retirement benefits to current seniors, raising taxes, slowing down the economy, young people have no opportunities. That's the fate that awaits us if we stick with the plan the president has on us. Let me get one over here. How about right there? Yeah, sure.
What I want to know is why you don't go back a few years and talk about the good economy we had with Bush up until 2006. When the Democrats took over, we had a 5% unemployment rate, and the Democrats were complaining about that. Why isn't this brought up that all the problems you can point to the Democrats when they took over Congress and the Senate? It had nothing to do with Bush. His hands were tied. It's just like what you're doing now. You have the purse strings. You can control that. But why isn't it being brought up?
Well, first of all, you raise a good point. The budget deficit, when Nancy Pelosi took over, was about $163 billion. Look at where we are now. So you're right, Congress has the power of the purse. But I don't want to spend all this time fixing blame in the past. Because you know what? Both parties actually should share in the blame of this. I know they're trying to, here's what President Obama is trying to do. To your point, he can't run on his record. I mean, look at the record we have. Look at our poverty rate. Look at the 23 million people out of work, struggling to find a job. Look at the people who are working on temporary jobs, who want a full-time job. Look at the people who stopped looking for a job. Last month, for every person who found a job, nearly 4 people stopped trying to find a job. Look at the budget crisis that's coming before us. Look at all the jobs that are being lost in these critical industries. I mean, just last week we learned 1,200 jobs in coal country in states like Virginia, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania gone, in great part because of the hostility of the Obama administration to this energy sector. So the president cannot run on his record. And so he has decided to blame. He's decided to cast blame, to divide people, to distract people, to try and win this election by default. We're not going to try and litigate what happened 10 years ago. We feel, Mitt and I believe, we owe you a choice of a better future. And that means we're putting ideas on the table. The whole point of this is we know where the president has taken us. We can't afford 4 more years of the same. We know we will have this budget crisis if we stick with this plan. And so we're saying, here's what you need to do to get people back to work. Here's what you need to do to get people out of poverty, out of dependency, back to lives of self-sufficiency. Here's what you need to do to grow the middle class. Here's what you need to do to cut spending. Here's what you need to do to reform government so government can keep its promises to its seniors. Here's what you need to do to get this country back on the right track. So we're not as interested in relitigating what happened in 2006 as we're worried where is America going to go from 2012 on. And it is a very clear choice. This election is a choice. What kind of people do we want to be? What kind of country do we want to have? And that choice is yours for the making. More importantly, it's really Ohioans. You know, I carry around with me my lucky Buckeye that my buddy Rob Portman gave me. He says it works to win elections here, so. Ohioans, you have a huge say-so in this. You have a big responsibility. You have a big opportunity. I think you're used to being targeted. I think you're used to being, you know, one of those battleground states. And within your power is the ability to very well decide not just who's going to be the next president of the United States, but what kind of country we're going to have. We want the land of opportunity. We want the American idea. We want a prosperous society. We want a society where jobs are being created, where economic growth is restored, where people can go get a job and have security in that job and have better take-home pay and have a chance of getting a better job. That's what makes us great. And we want that society where people who right now feel desperate, feel like they have no opportunity, can have a society and an economy where they have that opportunity, where they can make the most of their lives. That's the future that we can get. That's the future that is indicative of the American idea. But the path that the president has us on is a path of debt. It's a path of a country in doubt and decline. It's a path where the government tells us what our rights and liberties are. It's a path of the government borrowing and ending up with a debt crisis. It's as if the president is speaking to people today in America with all this rhetoric, with all this division, as if we're victims of circumstances beyond our control, stuck in some station in life. You know what? That's not who we are in this country. When I was growing up, when I worked my 3 jobs out of school to pay my loans, when I washed dishes or waited tables or, worked at McDonald's, it never occurred to me that I was stuck in some station in life or fixed in some class. That's not what we do in this country. That's not who we are in this country. We will not be intimidated by this rhetoric. And so I wish we had more time to keep going with this. They're telling me I've run out of my time. But I want to thank you for coming out today. I want to thank you for standing in line. I want to thank the people for. Okay, I'll get you the last word, sir. Wait. Okay, go ahead. One more. They're going to kill me for being late. I gotta. Real fast word, sir. Real fast
word. One last word is thank you for coming here. But my main issue here, I'm Barry Silver from Cincinnati, Ohio. I've been an undecided voter, and in the last 2 weeks, what they have been doing in the Middle East, the American administration, has been disgusting. But my main worry right now is Iran getting the bomb. We won't be here if Iran gets the bomb. Israel won't be there if Iran gets the bomb. All the survivors from the Nazi camps, half of them settled in Israel. They're going to annihilate them again. Where are you going to get the money to finance the protection of our defense and the protection of the only democracy in the Middle East, Israel?
Let me close with this. The first responsibility of the federal government is to protect national security. National security is the first and fundamental responsibility of the federal government, and a nuclear-capable Iran is a direct threat to our national security. I would just say to this, when we project weakness abroad through moral equivocation or by gutting our military with these devastating defense cuts that the president is promising, that projects weakness. And when you project weakness, your adversaries are far more willing to test us, and your allies are less likely to trust us. Mitt Romney and I believe that this is the most important foreign policy threat to our country. This is a country that calls us the Great Satan, that wants to wipe an entire nation off the planet. And they have gotten so much closer toward a nuclear weapon under the Obama administration, and we're going to stand up, and we're going to fight this. And we believe in peace through strength and supporting our military. Thank you very much, everybody. Really appreciate it. Thanks.